welcome to SpinachTiger.com. Today we're going to make a fall recipe, pumpkin fluffy biscuits. I have a great southern fluffy biscuit recipe already on YouTube and on SpinachTiger.com that you can go to and get lots of tips on how to make that perfect fluffy biscuit. But for today, we're going to do a little twist and we're going to put pumpkin in it, and it's going to have that great spicy flavor for fall and you're going to love it. So we're going to start out with 2 cups, and this time I use all-purpose flour instead of the light lily white flour because we're going to add so much moisture into our biscuit that I think will be okay with just all-purpose flour. So we've got actually 2.5 cups of all-purpose flour. Then we've got a teaspoon of salt, 1 tablespoon of baking powder, and then I'm going to add in some spice flavor. I have a pumpkin spice that I've made, pumpkin pie spice. You can use they store-bought if you would like, and I've already added my sugar to this, so I'm going to add the 1 tablespoon of pumpkin pie spice at a time and kind of mix all of that in so that the flour is flavored. And then you're going to add a tablespoon of sugar. I've already mixed mine up, so I'm going to add 1 more tablespoon of this pumpkin pie sugar mix. You can add a little more sweet if you want. Ooh, that smells good. Now I've taken canned pumpkin. I have 1/2 cup. And what I've done with that is add a whole tablespoon of the pumpkin pie spice. Really get it zesty. Now we're going to add 6 tablespoons of ice cold butter, and I'm going to use my hands to mix this up. Now why I've started doing this, and it's ended up being the best technique for making biscuits, is I wanted to teach kids how to make biscuits. I didn't want to use a biscuit cutter in case they would hurt their fingers. And it ended up that we all love this technique so much. Now the secret to making a good biscuit is to make sure you still have lots of little pieces of butter in there, because as they melt, that biscuit gets flaky. And I'm going to tell you something, of all the recipes, there's over 670 recipes over at SpinachTiger.com. The one recipe that I get the most positive comments, probably every single week somebody writes me about the success in making the fluffy biscuit. So I really recommend you go over there to the other video and take a look at just the regular biscuits and go to the website and check that out, because I hear all the time, men and women alike, I have finally made a good biscuit. Okay, now I'm going to take my pumpkin and I'm going to mix this in here really, really good. Another thing I recommend when you're working with your hands, I don't have any rings on. Don't use any jewelry because bacteria can get in your jewelry. So just go ahead and take all your jewelry off. And then, of course, wash your hands really well and then have fun. I think it's great to feel your own food and get this all mixed up. You want to get this mixed up really thoroughly. To this mix, we're going to add up to a 3/4 cup of buttermilk. And when I say up to, we're going to want a very sticky dough, but I'm not sure how much. Every time I make biscuits, it's somewhere between 3/4 and 1 cup of buttermilk. But since we already have this moistness put in here by the pumpkin, I'm going to measure and see what I think looks like the right consistency, and that's the trick of a biscuit too, knowing what you're looking for. Now that we have this pretty well mixed up, I'm going to go ahead and start with about, so far, 1/2 cup of buttermilk. And let's see, and these are going to be a little more gooier, a little messier than a regular biscuit because of that pumpkin. Same thing with a sweet potato biscuit. And by the way, speaking of sweet potato biscuits, I have 2 great recipes. over at Spinach Tiger on how to make great sweet potato biscuits. You might want to check that out too. One is made with a regular mashed sweet potato, and one is made with a candied sweet potato left over. I got that idea after Thanksgiving last year. So that makes for a fabulous biscuit. So you can make your sweet potatoes ahead of time and then make sweet potato biscuits. But I think nothing is going to make people happier starting off the day, Thanksgiving, at breakfast with some pumpkin biscuits with that cinnamon and ginger and clove and nutmeg smell coming through the house, just starting the day off just right. Now it's still just a tiny bit drier than I wanted, so I'm going to go ahead and add in more. And I want you to just kind of take a good look. I hope the camera is really catching how sticky. And we don't want to work it too much. That's kind of another trick. This gets just worked a little more than a regular biscuit because we want to make sure everything is incorporated. I think this is going to be wonderful. Now we're gonna bake these touching, kissing together on a cast iron flat griddle. You can use cast iron pan, you can use a baking sheet, you can use Silpat, whatever you have. I love the cast iron. I think that's just the best. That is kind of a perfect biscuit dough. You see that? It's real sticky. You don't want to add any more flour to that. You get a dry biscuit, and that's when the biscuits are rocks. When people go, oh, my biscuit is just a rock. Well, it's a rock because you have too many dry ingredients in there, too much flour. So I'm gonna sprinkle a little bit of flour on this, mainly so that I can get it into the pan. I'm gonna wash my hands, come back, cut out the biscuits, and then at 450, we're gonna bake these for 15 to 17 minutes. I'll be right back. Okay, now I'm gonna take just not too much flour, but just enough so that I can cut my biscuit. It's a little tricky when you have something like the sweet potato or the pumpkin in it. They're gonna be just a little tricky to get. Now I'm gonna just go straight down and pull out my biscuit. Put it right there. Let me move this all out of the way and show you. This is what I'm using, this flat cast iron pan. Not hot first, just cold. It'll get heated in the oven. Okay, these are coming out really nicely. These are gonna be great. I can already tell. I do have them maybe a little high. See, I don't roll them, just pat. All in the same bowl. I use a nice wooden bowl. Now, this is my biscuit bowl. Nothing else gets made in here except bread products, mainly biscuits. This is really my biscuit bowl. That one I'll just put in there with my hand. If you find you're having a hard time cutting them out, let me show you what you can do. You can just freeform. Freeform, don't worry about it, because these are biscuits and biscuits don't have to look perfect. And sometimes if you're not used to cutting out the biscuit, especially with this kind of a dough, you'll be much more successful with a regular biscuit. But then just freeform it. Not a problem. The trick is, because of the baking powder, you do want to get these in the oven pretty quickly. You don't want to fool around with it. Let me get myself just a little bit of floured hand. Oh yeah. Now, this recipe varies slightly from my basic everyday recipe. If you go to spinachtiger.com, I use the basic recipe and then make many variations of it, from things with fruit, cheese, bacon. You can find so many different kinds of biscuit recipes. Let's make room for this guy. And then look, not perfect, but they are perfect. I'm gonna take and get these in the oven for 15 minutes and I'll be back. Okay. Okay, I just took out my biscuits. I cooked them about 17 minutes because they're kind of big and fluffy with the pumpkin in them. I'm gonna cut one open, very steamy. We got our fluffy, we got our moistness because the pumpkin is going to keep them moist inside. Now I'm going to take a little butter. Then maybe just put a little bit of honey, because that's how the cameraman likes them. It's hot. They smell so good. The pumpkin is smelling all through the house. And there we have it. Perfect. What do you say? Yes?
Oh, yeah.
Getting the big oh yeah. Okay, so there you go. Just keep them together until you serve them. They'll stay nice and hot on this pan. Thank you for visiting SpinachTiger.com. Don't forget to go check out those other biscuit recipes. Hope you have a wonderful holiday season, or maybe it's summer and you just feel like eating pumpkin. That's okay too. So see you later, and thanks for letting me come into your kitchen.